Everybody, welcome back. In today's video, we'll discuss Chapter 5, Glimpses of India, Class 10 English. So it comprises of 3 sections, that is 3 stories. So we shall discuss them one by one. So before diving into our section, we have a short activity here. Let's discuss. What images of people and places come to your mind when you think of our country? So our country, India, if you think, our country is a secular country and it has diverse culture and diverse people in it because it comprises of so many different states and each with its own language and everything. You have unique festivals and traditions that are performed and followed, and these are a treat to watch. So you can mention any of those states and you can mention their festivals or culture. Second question, what part of India have you lived in? And this is a personal question, so you can go through your experiences or memories and you can frame some of them. Second question, you may know that apart from British, the Dutch and the French and Portuguese, they have also played a part of the history in our country. So which part, if you think the influence of French and Portuguese are found, you can say the part where Goa, many parts of Goa has the influence of France in it, French people in it. They can see many French style buildings, streets, and even the language traces. Many Anglo-Indian families or French Catholics you can find there. Next one, for Portuguese, you can find them in Goa, Daman and Diu, and even parts of Kerala somewhere. You can find them in old churches, forts and architecture, and even the food styles, even the food names you can find them. Next one, can you say which parts of India grow tea and coffee? So tea is majorly, it is produced in Assam, Darjeeling and Nilgiris and Himachal and Kerala. And coffee can be found in Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So these are the places where both tea and coffee are cultivated. So now let us go into our prose section. So A Baker from Goa by Lucio Rodriguez. So what this prose is about is the first section mainly deals with a warm and nostalgic pen portrait of a traditional Goan baker called a parrot, who is an essential part of every Goan village. So let's walk through the story and then answer our oral comprehension. So what is this story about? The narrator recalls how Goan elders fondly remember the Portuguese days and their famous bread. Even today, traditional bakers called padders continue the family profession of baking, and the sound of their bamboo staff can still be heard. In the narrator's childhood, the baker visited twice a day to deliver these baked goods. So, he used to wake up these kids with the jingling and the thud of his bamboo. The elders bought the loaves, but the children eagerly waited for the bread bundles, a kind of pastry that the baker specifically made. And sweet bread, as literally it means it is sweet. The baker greeted the household and delivered the basket to each house. And the narrator also remembers the fragrance of the bread and how, as children, they ignored even brushing their teeth and believing that hot tea after eating the bread would solve everything. So they are even so eager to eat the bread that they forget to brush their teeth, and drinking hot tea and just gurgling it would clean their whole mouth. So that is how he remembers his childhood, and he remembers these bakers, traditional bakers in Goa. So now we shall go into the oral comprehension. So what are the elders in Goa nostalgic about? So the elders in the Goa were nostalgic about the Portuguese days, where the famous loaves of bread made them a significant part of their lives. Because each morning the baker would wake them up sometimes to deliver the fresh, warm bread to their houses. So it was growing part of the day. Next one, is bread making still popular in Goa? How do you know? So yes, bread making is still part of Goa, and traditional furnaces can still be seen, and they do exist. The thud of the baker's bamboo is still heard, and the bakers continue to run their family profession generation after generation. So next question, what is the baker called? The baker is called a padder. Next one, when would the baker come home every day, and why did the children run to meet him? So he came once in the morning and again after his round. So the children ran up to meet him for the delicious bread bangles. So we'll go to the next part. So here what they are actually saying is about the significance of how the bread revolves around their lives. So it is not just bread, it is more than bread, and how it is a part of their lives. So the bread was essential in Goan life, used even for marriage gifts, engagement parties, Christmas gifts, and even festivals. By making it as an important part of a figure in the village itself, it has taken a form, symbolization, that without it, something does not even happen. So the traditional baker used to wear long frock-like dress called a kabai. And while later bakers, that is the modern bakers, they wore shirts and knee-length pants. So this is how the change has occurred. That is, this is the uniform of the baker, and this is used to recognize bakers in Goan villages. The baker usually collected his bills monthly at the end of each month, and he notes all these on the wall of the house, along the wall of every house, near the door or anywhere. He used to note it with a pencil so that he can cross it out, like, yeah, this man has paid, yeah, this house has paid. So they used to note it by writing on the walls. So baking was actually a profitable profession, and the baker's family was always well fed and prosperous, and they had a plump appearance to them and showing their good living and prosperity. So even today, anyone around Goa with a round and heavy build like a jackfruit, which is a large fruit, is called to be a padder. So this comes to the end of the course, and we will see the oral comprehension. So the exercises are a match the following. So they have asked us to match. What was marriage gifts? So marriage gifts were a sweet bread called bowl. Next, for a party or a feast, they used to have bread. Bread is essential. It is like mandatory. It exists even if any guest don't come, doesn't matter, bread will be there. So for a daughter's engagement, the mother is expected to make sandwiches. And for Christmas gifts, it is always cakes and bolin house. Next question. What did the bakers wear in the Portuguese days and when the Kotha was young? So during the Portuguese days, the original costume was a single piece long frock that extended down to their legs. But next, this was called a kawai, and after that, during his childhood, the author's childhood, the costume changed from long dress to a shirt and trouser with longer half pants that extended beyond the knees but not till the feet. So we can say a knee length pant. Next one. Who invites the comment, he is dressed like a padder, and why? So who is called a padder? So anyone who is wearing such a style dress with a long length pant that extends till their knees is called a padder. Because this was the essential costume of a baker. Next question. Where were the monthly accounts of the baker recorded? As we all found out, it is mentioned in the wall, written in a pencil alongside the house. So what does jackfruit-like appearance mean? So the padder who is always well grown, and they are always prosperous, and it is a prosperous profession. So anything that was well built and plump and had a prosperous look, they were called as a padder. Next question. Thinking about the text, which of these statements are correct? So we have to find which of these statements are true and which are false. So here we have, the padder was an important person in the village in old times. Yes, definitely true, because they were an essential part of the town and they were essential part of everybody's lives, because they gave the bread to each and every family in the village, and bread was an essential part of the daily food that people consumed. Next one, padders still exist in Goan villages. True, the padders still do exist, and they have given up the profession to the next generation so that the family profession stays alive throughout the generations. Next one, the padders went away with the Portuguese. It is false. They didn't go away. Some of them stayed, and they shared all their cultures and every bit of their traditions to the people. Next one, padders continue to wear single piece long frock. No, they do not wear. It is a false. They have changed to short pants that goes up to their knee, and shirts. Next one, bread and cakes were an integral part of the Goan life in the old days. True, they were always a part, and they still are a part of Goan life. And traditional bread baking is still very profitable business. Yes, it is true. It is still a profitable business in Goa. Padders and other families starve in the present times. It is false. They do not starve. It is a profitable business, and it has been considered as one of the best business around Goa. Second question, is bread an important part of Goan life, and how do you know this? Yes, bread is an important part of Goan life, and we understand this in the text. Let's go to the text. You'll see here that they were considered even as marriage gifts, and the mother of the bride has to make sandwiches on her daughter's engagement, and even cakes and bulinas are a customary thing during Christmas. So thus, the presence of a baker's furnace in the village is absolutely essential. So this paragraph signifies that how bread is essential in part of Goan life. So it is very, very important that it is always present in marriages, engagements, and Christmas events, and any other celebrations. So the baker's furnace is considered essential in a village. Next question. You have to tick the right answer. What is the tone of the author when he is saying the following? So the thud and jingle of the traditional baker's bamboo can still be heard in some places. So this is something that the author is recollecting. So it can be nostalgic. Maybe the father is not alive, but the son still carries on the family profession. So even the father is the top baker, and he is still not there. His son has taken over the business, and he is producing the same goods with a new touch maybe. So we are hopeful that he brings back those memories to us. So that is what here we have to say. Hopeful. I still recall the typical fragrance of those doughs. So this is again recollecting a once forgotten fragrance of the bread. So it is a nostalgic memory. Next one, the tiger never brushed his teeth, or tea would wash and clean up everything so nicely after all. So this is a part where the author is being funny. He's saying that the bread was so superb and so sweet, and we were so desireful about the bread that we forgot to brush. And when asked, he is simply saying that tigers never brushed, wild animals never brush before eating. So, and hot tea, when just gurgled in your mouth, it takes away everything. So, everything is gone. So, this is a funny moment. So, we are mentioning as fun. Next one, cakes and bulinhas are must for Christmas as well as other festivals. So, this is a mandatory matter of fact. It should be there. The guests don't arrive, no problem. But cakes and bulinhas must be there. Next one, the baker and his family never starved. They always looked happy and prosperous because it is a prosperous, profitable profession. Always people bought bread and goods and pastries. So it was a mandatory that they looked like that. They looked prosperous. They looked well fed. So next is the writing exercise. So what we have seen is we are given some clues and we have to find the sentences from the author's childhood days. So the way the bread was baked, it was baked in an age-old tested furnaces. You can find all these phrases within the text. The way the peddler sold bread. So how he used to come is, he used to come twice a day with a basket and a bamboo staff, which he used to thud on the ground so that people woke up with it. And the people could hear him coming from down the street. The next, what the peddler wore. So during the old time, he used to wear a long frock-like costume. But now they have asked for author's childhood days. So author's childhood days, we has witnessed them wearing shirt and trousers that were about to their knee length. And when the peddler was paid, how the peddler was paid? He was paid at the end of the month, and there used to be writing on the wall of the house with a pencil. How the peddler looked? He looked really plump and well fed, happy and prosperous. Next question, we have to compare two texts that are given in the two boxes, and we have to tell what is the difference between these texts. The first one is our own story. The second one is a normal, we can say a newspaper excerpt or some kind of factual information that is given. So if you compare this, we can see that it is written in first person, first one, and it is a nostalgic experience for the author to remember his childhood days and how he waited for the bread and how it smelled and how he tasted it every day and how it was part of his life. So all these memories he has. So it is a personal experience for him. And this is highly emotional and it feels like a warm, cozy cup of tea. And the other one, this one by Mr. Nandakumar. So what it is a factual representation of how the padders survived liberation and how they kept on their tradition of baking. So it comes out as a third person, in the third person, and it is kind of factual and informational in sense, and it is mainly informative and lacks that certain touch of personal touch, you can say, and it mostly deals with the history of padders, not the personal experience or anything like that. So it actually explains the history of bread making and how the bakers survived after liberation. So that is the main difference in this. So you can pause the video to learn the answer. Next question. Now find a travel brochure about a place you visited and look at the description in brochure. Write your own account. So you can take any place that you have visited. Remember to mention all the sensory details, like how you felt for the first time seeing the place and how it smelled. For example, if you go to a beach for the first time, you can, for the sunset or the sunrise, you can say how it smelled and how it felt, the temperature, and all the sensory details you can add. Like whether you heard the birds started chirping early in the morning or how the birds stopped suddenly during the sunset. All those things you can add. Then you can mention any conversation or memory of people whom you met on the way, or when you were experiencing this, the person who was next by you, and those things you can add. So visualize the scene with vivid descriptions and natural expressions, and more emotional expressions will put, it will be much more um, accessible to the reader. So you can make a paragraph like that. Next one is the group discussion. So what they have given us is, in groups, collect information about how bakeries bake bread now and how process has changed. So you can discuss with them about the tools and the speed and quality that is found. For example, before they used to do everything by hand, and now they have large industry type mixers to reduce time, and for hygienic purposes they have. So you can say how the wood fire furnaces have worked, and now compared to electric ovens and mixers and automated machines are there that roll and even make the different shapes of breads and everything. You can mention that. Next one, you can say the skills and the speed of the person doing. Like before, persons, they used to knead the dough and do everything, but now even machines are doing everything. Those things you can say. And how old baking was slow and manual, while new bakeries are faster and the product is immediately shipped out in large quantities. So, and also has improved hygiene because everything used to be done by hand, and now only machines touch everything. You just put on gloves and you touch the product only while you sell the product. So those things you can mention. So next question. There are some crafts given below, and they have asked to pick any one and explain how to revive them and why they are on the decline or something like that. So for the first anything, you can pick any one of the topic. Then you can focus on the skill and challenges that it presents. Like explain whether it needs special skills to learn that craft and why few people are learning it. Maybe because it is a low income type of craft, and you can mention why it has a decline in these days. Before they used to do this. Before, for example, you can take pottery. Like everybody used to only pot these type of ceramic potteries. So we used to cook with that only. But nowadays we have stainless steel, iron, and various other materials, silicone. We have other materials that we use now. So those kind of materials are no longer needed. So it may be low on demand. So those things you can mention. And you can say machine made alternatives have come, like you have pre-cookers and you have rice cookers. Now those things are entirely different from the pottery that you used to take for cooking, because you used to wait so long for the pot to cook your food. But now cookers have rice will be given in 15 minutes, 20 minutes they used to cook. So those things you can mention. And next you can mention the decline, that is due to the cheaper alternatives we have and hygienic things we have, because the pottery pots used to burst when you have too much heat on them. But stainless steel bowls or kadais, they don't burst. Next, you can suggest the revival strategies, how to revive these old techniques. You can propose solutions such as government subsidies can be given, or we can do online marketing, something more like engaging the younger viewers, or something new, because these never used to be publicized. They were only available in markets and where used to go. They were never available for us to see wherever our attention was. So nowadays, due to smartphones and online marketing, we can actually put them anywhere. So next one, we can go to the next topic. It is Coorg. Now, Coorg was written by Mr. Lokesh Abrao. So, Coorg is located between Mysore and Bangalore, and it is a beautiful district of Karnataka known for its rolling hills and evergreen forests and spices and coffee plantations. So, this region, it enjoys heavy monsoon rains, but the best season to visit this is from September to March. Its people believed to be of Arabic or Greek descent and are known for their bravery, hospitality, and distinct culture. So, these people are entirely unique to us. And mainly, the Coorg is famous for the Coorg Regiment and for being the only place in India where locals can carry firearms without a license. And the Kaveri River, which has its origin there, flows through the area, supporting rich wildlife. And many fishes such as mahasir and kingfishers and animals such as squirrels, langurs and elephants thrive in this evergreen forest. So Coorg also offers adventure rides such as rafting, canoeing, rappelling and trekking. So visitors can enjoy scenic views and from the Brahmagiri hills and explore Visadgama Island and meet Tibetan monks at Bailakuppe, making Coorg an unique blend of nature, culture and adventure. So this is the summary about Coorg, and now we'll deal with the book back question. So the first question is, where is Coorg? So it is situated between Mysore and the postal town of Mangalore in Karnataka. Next one, what is the story about Kodavu people's descent? Kodavu people are the people who are in Coorg. So it is believed that the Kodavus may be from Greek or Arabic descent. One story says that the part of Alexander's army settled in Coorg, and while other links them to Arabs because of their way of dressing, because the traditional dresses resembles an Arabic clothing. What are some of the things that you know about the following things? The people of Coorg, they are very brave, they are fierce, they are independent and they are hospitable. Next one, the main crop of Coorg. So the main crop that is being cultivated there is coffee. Next one, the sports it offered to tourists. So tourists are offered variety of sports such as river rafting, canoeing, rappelling, rock climbing, mountain biking and even trekking. So the animals you are likely to see in Coorg are, you may see macaws, Malabar squirrels, langurs, slender lorers, kingfishers, mahashi fish and elephants. These are the animals that are found in Coorg forests. Next one, its distance from Bangalore and how to get there. So this one can be found in this section, fact 5 section. You can see that Coorg is 22 to 250 to 260 kilometers from Bangalore, and you can reach it by road through Neelamangal and Kunigal and Chandrayanapatna highway. Through these roads we can reach them. So if you want to go by air, that is airport, your nearest airport will be found in Mangalore and Bangalore. So from wherever you are, you have to reach the airports of Mangalore and Bangalore and you can go from there. Then next one is nearest railway station. In case of you're going by rails, you can go to the railway stations that are in Mysore, Mangalore and Hassan. So from there you can travel to Coorg. Next question. here are 6 sentences with some words in italics. So we have to find the phrases within the text. So during monsoon, it rains so heavily that tourists do not visit Coorg. So it is given in paragraph 2. Let's go to paragraph 2. Go to paragraph 2. The answer is, it pours enough to keep many visitors away. That is, the rainfall is so heavy that visitors are not able to come outside of their rooms or hotel rooms or anywhere. They can't even actually visit Coorg during that time. Next question. Some people say that Alexander's army moved south along the coast and settled there. So it is given paragraph 3. Let's go there. As one story goes, a part of Alexander's army moved along south, along the coast, and settled there. So this is where the ancestry of Coorg people comes from. That is, they are saying that Greek ancestry comes from Alexander's army. Some of them who stayed back along the coast. Next, the Coorg people are always ready to tell stories of their sons and fathers' valor. So it talks about their bravery. So we go to paragraph 4. They are more willing to recount numerous tales of valor related to their sons and fathers. So they are always ready to tell stories about their bravery to anyone who can listen. Next question. Even people who normally lead a easy and slow life get smitten by the high energy adventure sports of Coorg. So the paragraph 6, we shall go and find it. The answer is, the most laid back individuals become converts to a life of high energy adventure. Even an introvert will become an extrovert seeing all the facilities and the activities found in these Coorg locations, such as rappelling and climbing and mountain rafting. All those things are attractive enough that even an introvert will turn into an extrovert. Next one. The theory of Arab origin is supported by the long coat with embroidered waist belt they wear. So it is in paragraph 3. The theory of Arab origins draws support from the long black coat with embroidered waist belt worn by the Kodavurs. So this relates to the Arab side descent of the Coorg people. Next one, last one. Macaws, Malabar squirrels observe you carefully from the tree canopy. So this talks about the wildlife of Coorg. So these animals keep a watchful eye from the tree canopy. This is the answer which was found in the text. So we'll go to the next section. Thinking about language. So what are collocations? Collocations are words that go together. So we'll have, for example, you can see these two sentences. You can find how old are you, how young are you. We actually don't ask how young are you. We actually ask how old are you. It seems much more grammatically correct to ask. And next one is he is a pleasant person. It is a pleasant pillow. We never say it is pleasant pillow. We say it is a nice pillow. It is a fluffy pillow. And pleasant is not a word that is used to describe a pillow. So they are words that go together. The company that it keeps, they are called like word friends. So down we have certain words given in a box, such as mean, terrible, unforgettable, serious, all those things. Now what they have asked us to do is, you have to use that word along with the given word so that we are getting collocations, correct collocations. So let us find out. First one has already been done for us, that is the culture, and they have used the word unique culture, and ancient culture. It is correct, grammatically correct. You can actually use that. Next one is monks. Monks are the priests that live in monasteries. So they can be ancient monks and they can be serious monks. Those who are very strict or someone who has taken a vow of silence because they don't talk. So those people. So we can mention serious monks. Surprise. Surprise, you can say that it is a sudden surprise. And you can say it was an unforgettable surprise when someone throws you a party or something. And you can say terrible surprise also when the situation is not right and a person throws a surprise party for you. You have lost your dog or something and you're returning home after searching for your dog, and suddenly there is a party, secret party for you. You have to say mention it as a terrible surprise. Next one, experience. So experience, you can say it was an unique experience. When you go to some kind of forest or something and a bird comes and sits on your shoulder or on your head, it was a unique experience. You never get to experience those things where you normally live. So those kind of experience, terrible experience. You were walking or trekking through the forest and suddenly you slipped and you fell down and you broke your ankle or something, sprained your ankle. So that is a terrible experience. Then unforgettable experience would be when you are trying to take a picture of something and suddenly the light and wind and everything comes in your favor and it gives you such a beautiful shot, and you will be thinking that this was an unforgettable experience for you. Next one, weather. Weather, we can check out these pods and you will see that only terrible fits correctly. You can't say unique weather, you can't say serious weather. You can have sudden, but what the thing is, you have to say as sudden changes in weather. You cannot say sudden weather. So the thing will be terrible weather. And next one is tradition. Tradition can be ancient tradition, unique tradition to each and every state that is, or each and every culture, or each and every religion there is. Those things you can mention. The next one. We can see the following thing is that they have given the beginning of a phrase and they have asked you to find the phrase within the text and then even mention something of your own. So what they have done is tales of valor. As we already saw before, that the Kur people are really excited and they are more than happy to share the tales of valor of their sons and fathers. So you can mention as tales of adventure or tales of excitement or anything like that. Next one, coastal town is what is mentioned in the text, and you can mention coastal region or coastal area. Next one, piece of heaven, that is given in the text. So you can say piece of land or piece of cake, something like that. And evergreen, and the ending word would be rainforest as per the text. And you can mention as trees. Next one, plantations that are famous in Kur. It is coffee plantations. So you can mention as tea plantation or rubber plantations. You can mention. And the rope bridges of the visitors, they visit these. So you can mention as wooden bridges. And all those animals can be wild creatures are mentioned as in text. And you can mention as wild animals. So this is how this exercise is completed. So we'll move on to the next section. That is the next story. It is Tea from Assam. So Tea from Assam is written by Mr. Arup Kumar Datta. So we have a small story like it's more of a personal story like. So what is it is Rajveer, a boy. Rajveer and Pranjol are both studying in a school in Delhi. So Rajveer travels with his classmate Pranjol to Assam during his summer vacation. So while drinking tea on the train, Rajveer shares interesting facts and legends about the origin of tree, showing his curiosity and enthusiasm. As the train moves into Assam, Rajveer is fascinated by the endless stretches of lush green tea gardens, while Pranjol, who has lived there all his life, is used to the scenery, so this doesn't excite him as much. So at Mariani station, Pranjol's parents receive them and they are taken back to the house. You see that Pranjol's father, he works at Dekyabari Tea Estate, where he is the manager. And Rajveer observes that the neatly pruned tea bushes and the tea pluckers at the work, and learns about the second flush season that produces the best tea, and he looks forward to learning more about the tea during his visit from Pranjol's father. So this was the summary of the story. So it is basically two friends going on a summer vacation to one of their houses, which happens to be in a tea estate. So the person who's the father is working in the tea estate, he is not that much interested in the scenery and everything, because he has already been living it for a long time. But his friend who is new to this place is really interested, and he is more than eager to learn more about this tea estate and tea and its quality and production and everything. So now let's go to the book by questions. So they have given us some words and we are supposed to fill them down in these blanks. A heavy dash has been forecast due to low pressure, a downpour. Downpour means rain. Rakesh will undergo major surgery tomorrow morning. He will undertake. He will be going to. My brother is responsible for the dash of our family property, upkeep. He has to take care of the family property. Next one, the dash rate of the accountancy course is very high. The dash rate means, we are actually seeing about the dropout case. The dropout means people who are leaving the course. She went to the enterprise company to attend a walk-in interview. Walk-in in the sense that it does not require an appointment and you can directly go and you can attend an interview. Now for the next one, we have to fill in the blanks by combining the verb with the given brackets, and we have to find a new word and we have to fill it in. So here, if you see means, you can see the first question. The army attempted to unsuccessfully dash the government. The verb that has been given is throw. So what you have to use some of these words here. So over will be the correct one. So we are using overthrow. Overthrow means defeating the government. The next one is scientists are on the brink of major breakthrough in cancer research. The verb was break, and if you say through will be the correct apt word for this. So breakthrough means a new discovery that was identified. Next one, the state government plans to build a dash for Bhubaneswar to speed up the traffic. So a bypass is an alternative route of road that is being built by the government. Next one, in Gautama's outlook on life changed when he realized that the world is full of sorrow. So the verb was look and we have used the word out. So it has become outlook. Outlook means his viewpoint or his point of view has changed from which he is viewing this world. Next one, Rakesh seemed unusually downcast after the game. The word was cast and we have used down. Downcast means you are feeling very sad or dejected, unnecessarily sad due to some reason. So that is what downcast means. So next exercise. So we are seeing ing and ed adjectives. They are given some examples. Chess is an interesting game. I am very interested in chess. Going trekking in the Himalayas this summer was an exciting idea. We are very excited about the play. So the books are boring. He was bored by the book. So these are all the different adjectives with ing and ed. So one talks about the ing one talks about the qualities of whatever the game or the adventure or the books are. ED talks about your mental state of how you are feeling, the emotional side of your that activity is being talked about. So this is the difference between both. So they have asked you to fill out some of the words that describe the following clues. A good detective serial on a television. So if you see a good detective serial, it is who done it. It is kind of a good done it, a murder mystery or something that kind. It is always interesting and exciting and gripping, nail biting tension. So all these comes under ing words. So adjectives. So we are mentioning them. Interesting, exciting, gripping. Next one, a debate on your favorite topic. Homework should be banned. So this can be engaging, exciting. It can be a stimulating experience for you to debate because it is a immediate response to what you have to say. You have to pick the points your opponent says and you have to counteract it, debunk it, and you have to come up with a fresh rebuttal for the point that they have uttered. So it is kind of a stimulating experience, a brain stimulating experience. So how you feel when you stay indoors during incessant rain? You are always bored. You are frustrated that you can't go out and enjoy something. You go to a vacation and suddenly it is pouring like cats and dogs. You can't go out and visit any place. You didn't come to vacation just to sit inside a hotel room and watch TV. So you'll feel bored and frustrated. Next one, how do you feel when you open a present? You feel very excited and thrilled to see what the surprise is inside. So it comes to the ed adjective. Next one, how you feel when you watch favorite program on television? You are always amused and you are always entertained to watch your new show. Next one, the look on your mother's face as you waited in the queue. So we are waiting for something to buy or the billing in a long queue means you will be irritated and annoyed because you have to wait for a long time for others to move so that your turn comes fast. How you feel when tracking a tiger in the tiger reserve forest? So when you are going on a wildlife sanctuary or something like with an open van or something, you are always frightened. You are terrified and thrilled whether you will encounter some kind of tiger there or any other wild animal. The story you have recently read or film that you have seen recently. So whatever film that you have recently seen, when you are explaining it to someone, you will always say it was a fascinating movie, it was moving, it was entertaining, it was deeply touching movie. So those things will come under ing adjectives. So now they have asked us to write a paragraph using all these adjectives, and you can make a simple paragraph using all these adjectives, and you can frame a small paragraph, simple one, dealing with Cork and their culture and the people in it and how they are so different and how they are accommodating visitors and how much rich culture they give to us, and all these things you can mention. Next one, speaking and writing exercise. They have given you a short passage here about tea and how it was first introduced into India. So they have asked you to perform some kind of presentation where you are kind of can take any role that is of a tea planter or a sales agent or a tea lover, a physician and a tea shop owner, and you can try to talk among yourselves among this point. So you can pick any role that you want and you can develop and talk about the origin of tea, and you can say its benefits and its popularity here. For example, you can use these kind of phrases and words like, I feel that tea is a refreshing drink that will help me stay alert. And you can say that I disagree with you because I think green tea is much more healthy than normal tea. You can mention like that. So any points you can gather around tea and its benefits, we can include here, and you can prepare a presentation, and you can use kind of beautiful words and persuasive words such as try it now. It has pure taste. It is completely organic, like that you can mention, and all those things. Next one, we have a sales executive and you have to prepare an advertisement. So same thing applies here. You can mention the benefits of your tea and you can prepare a slogan, which is a catchy phrase, and you can make visually appealing posters on it and colorful images of teas and even animated cartoons on it. So all those things you can prepare, and you can finish up your advertisement in a very visually presenting way so that it is attractive for everybody. So that comes to the end of our prose. We will now see the poem section. So in the poetry section, we are going to see the poem The Trees by Adrian Rich. So what this poem describes is how the trees kept inside a house begin to move out towards the open forest. So the roots work hard to break free from the floor, and the leaves and branches, they strain against their restraints and try to venture out into the outside world. As they escape, the poet quietly observes their departure without mentioning it in the letters. By the night, the trees push through the glass and step into the open air, and where the wind and the moonlight welcomes them. So the poem symbolically addresses or shows how nature's urge to return to its rightful place and to break free from the human confinement. So this is the summary of the poem. So now we'll deal with the book back questions. First question. Find in the first stanza 3 things that cannot happen in a treeless forest. So if you go back to the stanza, you can see that the words are: no bird could sit, no insect can hide, and no sun can bury its feet in the snow. So these are the things that won't happen if there is no forest or trees in the forest. So the next question, what picture do these words create in your mind? The sun bury its feet in a shadow. When we hear these words, we are thinking of how the sunlight, when it first travels from the sky and tries to touch the forest floor. So that kind of thing is what we get visual imagery of. So those things, the sunlight touching the forest floor, that is called as the feet of the sun by the poet. Next one. Where are the trees in the poem, and what do the roots, leaves and twigs are doing? So what happening is, the question being asked is, we are actually dealing with the plants that are living inside the house of the poet. So here they are asking what is their roots and leaves and twigs are doing. So for a first one, the roots are trying to pull themselves out of the veranda floor from where they have been planted. And the next one, the leaves are pressing against the glass windows or the glass doors, trying to reach outside. And the twigs, they have become stiff with so much effort that they are putting. They have become stiff and they are trying to push the building and the concrete walls outside. Next question. What does the poet compare the branches to? So the branches are being compared to newly discharged patients because they are the ones that are moving really slowly, and they are weak and they are slowly trying to move outside of the house. Third question. How does the poet describe the moon at the beginning of the third stanza and at the end of the poem? And what causes these changes? So if you see, when the night is fresh, the whole moon shines. So this is the first effect before the plants have started to move. So the moon is outside. Next one. The moon is broken now. Why it is broken is because the moon cannot be broken. Actually what happens, it is kind of a visual representation of the moon. If you see, at the beginning the moon was bright, and this is being watched at the sky by the poet. So the last one, the moon has been broken because it is flashing its reflection on the mirror that has been broken, or the glass pieces, because the leaves have finally broken the glass windows and they have moved out. So the moon is being reflected on the glass pieces. So they appear to be broken. So it is the reflection of the moon on the glass. So next one. What happens to the house when the trees move out? So what happens to the house is, once all the living greenery that has been filling your house has moved out, it becomes really silent and empty for the poet. And it becomes a lifeless concrete building without any movement or whispering. Any life that was present already in the building has left. Next question. Why do you think the poet does not mention the departure of the forest from the house in his letters? Because he is embarrassed or something. Because we can say that when something terrible or something that unimaginable or something that is hurtful happens, we do not want to actually express those things. We want it to be left as it is. So that is what the poet is trying here to be. He is trying to avoid mentioning or describing this strange occurrence that is deeply meaningful, because the plants, they are finally escaping from their captivity to their own identity. So that one is very painful to watch and mysterious and unusual. So the poet does not want to describe those things on the poet. And he doesn't want to overwhelm us with the emotions that will be seen in the plants. So he is not mentioning that. Next question. Now that you have read the poem in detail, you can ask what the poem means. So the poem means is, we can say that it is a metaphor for freedom and breaking away from restrictions. So the plants have been uprooted from where they were used to be, and they have been kept into a concrete jail, just like the poem we saw earlier, Tiger and Azur. So it is inside a building, inside a concrete building. So the trees are pushing their way out of the house, just like people are freeing themselves from emotional or social or any personal confinement. Just as the trees are struggling to break out, individuals are trying to break out of their controlling environments. Anything, maybe a controlling job or controlling parents or anything like that. They're trying to get out of it. So that is what the tree is symbolizing as. It is used as a metaphor about old habits or limiting relationships or abusive relationships, something like that. And another thing is, it is a symbol of renewal or reclaiming of identity. How you'll reclaim your identity? You have been taken from some place and you have been kept at some place. So you're trying to go back to that place. You are trying to reclaim your identity. The trees have become household plants, but they are not household plants. They are trees of forest or plants of forest that are supposed to be growing freely. So it is them reclaiming their identity. So they want to return to their one true self. So the trees belong to the forest and not inside a house. Similarly, the poem suggests that people must return to their natural identity to rediscover their strength and rebuild what was lost or suppressed, and not put on fake things just to impress others. So does the poem present a conflict between man and nature? Compare it to the Tiger and the Zoo poem, as I mentioned before. So the interior decoration in cities where the forests are cut down. So the poem suggests that trees are indoors for a decoration or imprisoned. Just like the tiger in the zoo, just for viewing and just for beauty of it, we have actually imprisoned the tiger so that we can see it every day. So the trees are trying to break out, showing that nature's desire of freedom. See, similarly, we saw in the last stanza of the tiger in the zoo about how the tiger ignores its visitors and longingly looks at the stars, because that symbolizes its freedom and it wants to get out. So those things are same in both these poems. Next one. On the other hand, Edwin Rich had been known to use trees as a metaphor for human beings. So this is a recurrent image in a poet. But new meanings emerge from the poem if you take trees to be symbolic of this particular being. So if we think that trees are people, then we can say that as I mentioned before, that people are trying to break free from restrictions, confinement, social expectations of like you have to live like this, you have to do like this. As if you are a firstborn son, you have to take care of the family, you have to take care of the financial structure and everything. All those things, those social expectations, all those things, and you are moving from one country to another country, you lose your identity, and you become one of that own. You become a lamb along with them. So those things, the movement outward symbolizes growth, independence, liberation, and the search for your identity. So those things can be mentioned here. So next one, you may read the poem On Killing a Tree by G.A. Patel and Behave in the next class 9 English book. Compare and contrast it with the poem this one. So what connection we can find is both poems hold a strong connection between trees and life. So both highlight this unstoppable energy of nature also. So the difference you can see is the trees poem, the chapter 5 poem, it focuses on the trees escaping the confinement and returning to their natural environment. But on Killing Tree, you can see it shows the difficult and violent, how violent it is to destroy a tree, because it is the life force that is very strong. So it is, one is about returning to nature and the other is about human cruelty to nature. So that is the main difference between both. So next topic we have is homophones, and you can see two words just like similar we have referred to in the previous chapter. You can see that refuse and refuse hold the same spellings, but here they refer to different meanings. We can see for dove also, for invalid also. So we will look at the examples. The dump was so full that it had to refuse more refuse. So the first refuse that is being used, it is to say no, no more. The next refuse means garbage or trash, refuse material. So those things means garbage or trash. So we are saying no to more trash. When shot at, the dove dove into the bushes. So the first dove is kind of like a pigeon type bird. You can see the peaceful dove, the white dove of peace. So those kind of birds. So that is called a dove. So the second dove is the past tense of dive. It literally means to dive deep into something. So when the dove was shot at, it immediately plunged into the bush. Next was the insurance was invalid for the invalid. So this both has the same spelling, but they will have different meaning in the sentence. The insurance was invalid. Invalid means it is not recognized. It is not legally recognized. Next, invalid. That invalid means a person who is not able to take care of themselves. Either they can have some disabilities or they are unable to do so on their own, are called invalid. So that is how we are differentiating both the words. So these are homophones that have the same spellings, but they have different meanings. So this brings about to the end of our chapter 5, and this ends the video of chapter 5. So for any doubts or queries regarding the chapter or any few before previous chapters, you can contact us at Go Ask Now Academy, or please leave a comment.